You know, Jack, I still can't believe that my neighbor, Sam Lambert, was murdered. I can't imagine anyone who would want to do him harm.
I'd only met him that one time during the investigation of your alleged murder, and he seemed to be a straight-up guy. Hard to believe that he'd be the type of person to be murdered. It's got some interesting elements, this case, and I've got to get to the bottom of it.
He was very generous, giving his time volunteering at charity functions. And every Christmas, he would donate a large sum of money for gifts for underprivileged children.
Is there any family member or friends that might have had a reason to harm him or to get revenge for something he did?
Well, I don't think that she would want to do him harm or get revenge, but I can tell you that Juliet was going with Sam for 3 years. But then they broke up when he started seeing his high school sweetheart again. Her name was Denise.
Well, you know, wouldn't be the first time that a love affair gone bad led to violence. How did Juliet react when they broke up? Did she ever say anything threatening towards him?
Well, she was understandably upset. She never said anything threatening, though, and I really don't think that she would do him any harm, especially she would not murder him.
Even though she's your sister, Juliet could have a motive, especially since she and Sam dated for so long. But tell you what, I'll schedule an appointment with her and see if she can shed any light on the case. Is there anything further you can tell me about Sam?
Although he discontinued them when the virus broke out, Sam used to host poker games every week at his house, and actually my brother Jude attended them.
Well, having a gambling debt could also be a motive. Is there any chance that Jude had a large gambling debt?
You know, I really don't think so. If he did, he would have asked me to borrow money, and he never did.
Anyone else who you could suggest I talk to about Jude?
Yes, Casey, the book publisher. They see each other all the time. Not romantically, of course, but they are good friends, and she makes allowances for him because she knows he's delusional, and that's why they get along so well.
So I will definitely speak to both of them. Right now I'm waiting to hear from the coroner's office. Perhaps the results from the toxicology report will shed some light on his murder. While I wait, is there anything that you might know about Sam's life before he moved here?
I do know that his wife died before he moved here, but I don't know how she died because he never wanted to talk about it. He did mention to me once that he lives off of interest income, so he must have a substantial amount because he's able to donate such a large amount at Christmas every year for the underprivileged children.
Maybe he just benefited from a family inheritance, or he's a shrewd investor. I'll say, though, this case is becoming very intriguing. Well, if there's anything else that you can think of about Sam, please let me know.
Oh, well, of course, I'll let you know if I think of anything at all. Are we going to see each other tonight for a socially distanced dinner?
Yes, I'd like that. I'll see you at 6. Hello, Julia. It's good to see you again, although I'm sorry it's under these circumstances. I just have a couple of questions about your relationship with Sam Lambert.
Oh, Sam Lambert. Yes, come on in. I would love to talk to you about him. Come on in and have a seat.
Yeah, I hope you understand I'm not accusing you of anything. These are just routine questions that I'm hoping you can help me with this case.
Well, like I said, I appreciate that you're looking into the case, and I'm here for you, whatever you need.
I understand you and Sam dated for about 3 years and then were engaged. Must have been quite a shock to you when he broke up with you.
Of course, it was a big shock. It hurt my ego to be thrown over for another woman, I can tell you that. And I was mad, I was livid. I screamed and yelled at him. But then I got over it. You know, I realized that he and Denise were high school sweethearts. And it's hard to compete with that.
That's the same thing that Jenna said. Sounds like you got over him quickly and amicably. So the breakup wasn't a motive for you to want to murder him.
No, it wasn't. In fact, there was one silver lining for him and I breaking up, and that was I didn't have to smell that fish anymore. He ate sushi all the time, and I couldn't stand the smell of fish. It made me sick. But then he called me a couple months ago, actually, And he was telling me how Denise was becoming so bossy. In fact, it sounded like that might be even cause for him to break up with her.
If so, I wonder if that could have been a motive for her to want to kill him.
Definitely not. She was a pacifist.
Okay, is there anything else that you can tell me about Sam that might help solve this case?
Well, it was common knowledge that he hosted poker games at his house. That is, right until COVID-19, which put an end to it all.
That's what Jenna told me. Do you know if these were high-stakes poker games?
Well, Sam never talked about the amount of money. Although, one time I did see a large check on his refrigerator from one of the players. And not to cast suspicion on my brother Jude, but I know that he did owe a lot of money.
Okay, that's interesting. Why would Jude confide in you but not in Jenna? She told me she had no idea whether he won or lost, and that he'd never asked her for any money.
Well, Jude was always so competitive with her, and he didn't want her to know that he owed money, and he didn't want her to think that he was a loser. So, I can tell you something else though. He asked me for $10,000 once as a loan, and of course I didn't have the money at the time, so I couldn't help him. It's funny because that Sam, I think, was a professional poker player. He seemed to win all the time. And it's funny to think that people would want to play with him when he was winning so much.
I can think of several different reasons. The challenge, addictive behavior, the desire to win. Do you know if Jude was ever able to get a loan and pay off the debt?
I don't know. But I feel really bad about not following through with my brother. But Jude, he wasn't very warm and fuzzy.
No, he's not. As a matter of fact, he was my number one suspect before we found out that Jenna was still alive. He could really use an attitude adjustment. Yeah, Jenna tells me that she doesn't know too much about Sam's background before he moved here. Is there any information that you can provide me about him?
Well, I don't know if this means much, but he was fascinated with the crime boss, Frankie Castellano. He even watched a movie about him, and he also had a book that he read about Frankie.
Frankie Castellano, eh? Well, interestingly enough, Frankie and I grew up in the same neighborhood. He was sent to prison, and an informant was put into the witness protection program. I wonder why Sammy was so interested in Frankie. Well, I guess some people are just interested in crime. Well, I want to thank you for your help. I really appreciate it, and if I have any more questions for you, I'll contact you.
Well, I hope you find out who did this soon. Sam had his faults, but he was really a nice person.
Given that we're 6 feet apart, we don't need the mask, so you're welcome to take it off.
So we meet again. And I'm surprised that you asked to see me at my sister's house. That was fast. Are you shacking up with her?
Now let's get the ground rules understood here. I ask the questions, you answer the questions. I have some questions about the murder of Sam Lambert.
Am I a suspect again? Look what happened last time. My sister wasn't even dead. Why don't you go harass somebody who's actually doing a crime?
You continue to act schizo. I'm asking everybody questions. So, I'm just asking you questions. Mr. Lambert apparently was a well-respected member of this community and just doesn't seem to be the type of person that would be murdered.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to file a complaint against you for harassing me.
Go ahead. The police have asked me to help them with this case. If you would get that chip off your shoulder, you'd get done a lot sooner.
Well, what I know about Sam Lambert, he was no saint everyone paints him to be.
Why would you say that? I hear he did volunteer work and donated to charities. To me, that makes him a kind and generous man.
Well, if people knew what I knew about him, they would be shocked.
Okay, I'll bite. What do you know about him that is so shocking?
He cheats at cards.
And do you know this how? Do you have proof?
Well, no, I don't have actual proof, but he always wins at cards.
Maybe he wasn't cheating. Perhaps he's just a way better card player than you and everybody else at the table.
Well, he confided in me one time when he had a few too many shots of whiskey. He used to be a professional dealer at one of those underground poker games in New York. Then he moved to California because his wife was shot. I think that's the club where he learned how to cheat so well.
Just because he was a professional card dealer doesn't mean that he cheated.
I knew I shouldn't have kept playing cards with him, but I had to try and win my money back, you know?
How much did you lose?
$1,000?
$1,000? I understand that your sister Juliet, you asked her for a loan of $10,000.
Juliet and Jenna are always against me, always against me. I should have known.
Did you ever repay the loan?
No. And now that Sam's dead, I don't have to.
Do you know how incriminating that sounds? That's a motive, if I've ever heard one.
Well, I didn't do it. I was just merely expressing my good fortune.
Your good fortune that Sam is dead? You really are something else. And I'll tell you one more thing. You were correct. You are a suspect. And I'm going to need to know where you were on the night Sam was murdered.
Well, I was having dinner at the Shanghai Palace with my friend Casey. You do remember her from the Jenna murder case?
Yes, she is hard to forget. But what I will do is, I will call her and I will schedule an appointment to see if she corroborates your story. One other thing, I'm certain I don't have to remind you, don't leave town.
Oh, yes. I've got to call Carlita. I've got to invite her to the party I'm going to be throwing. Carlita, this is your Aunt Sophie. Hi. Well, I wish that I could have talked to you in person, but I'll leave this message for you. Have you been out of town? I've been trying to call for several days. I hope everything's okay. So, Carlita, the reason I'm calling is because your Uncle Frankie, my brother, is being released from prison, and I want to throw a great big party for him. You know, for the past 10 years, I've been stewing over the fact that Joey Morgan put my brother Frankie behind bars. You know, he had no loyalty. I wish he would get what's coming to him. Too bad he vanished into thin air. Sorry I went on like that. I'm sure you know that you're your uncle's favorite niece, and a party wouldn't be complete without you there. Hope you can bring your tiramisu. I know your uncle would love it, and no party would be complete without that. So call me when you can, sweetie. I'll be looking forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye.
Casey, I want to thank you for inviting me over to your place in such short notice. I appreciate that. And these wonderful Thanksgiving decorations, it certainly puts us in the mood for the season, especially at a very difficult time that we're going through. I know that you and Jude have been friends for a very long time. I'd like to talk to you about him.
Yes, we have, and of course I'd be wanting to help you as much as I can. Speaking of difficult times, I'd be happy to let you take off your mask if we sat 6 feet apart. Well, we have been friends for a very long time, and you know, when you have a friend like that, and you see them fall into kind of delusional thinking, you don't pay attention to it. You just cut them a lot of slack. But, you know, really, I thought you were coming to talk to me about Sam's death.
Well, I am, but I have to tell you, I have some very damning evidence against Jude.
Oh, you know that story that's going around about him owing Sam $10,000? Jude's a really good guy and very soft-hearted. He's not a killer. He wouldn't even kill a fly.
Well, Norman Bates aside, I appreciate that you're such a loyal friend, but an alibi for him on the night of the murder would be much better than a vote of confidence. He said he was with you.
Let's see, Shanghai Palace. Yeah, that was 2 nights ago. And the only reason I remember it is because this really odd thing happened.
Does this have some kind of bearing on the case?
It might. So this woman walks in. No, it's not that. The owner is bemoaning to his staff that the original chef has just left. And there's customers out on the patio piling up, making orders. And all of a sudden, this woman walks in with a resume and says she's a chef and she would like a job. And what happens? He looks at the resume, looks at her experience, obviously impressed, and hires her right on the spot.
I'm not familiar with the Shanghai Palace. What type of food do they serve?
It's this sushi place, and they serve this one dish called fugu fish, and it's a delicacy. It's really awesome, but if it's cooked wrong, it's poisonous, fatal.
I just don't understand why people would eat food that could possibly poison them or could kill them.
Yeah, it seems kind of mad, but it's totally delicious. And then there's the other part. People like risking death. You know, it's kind of like the Russian roulette of the sushi world.
Well, I'll pass. So, getting back to your story, what was the odd situation to which you referred?
Well, what I'm trying to tell you is the other part of this odd story is that the new chef later in the evening tells a delivery person, because I overheard this, to take a free meal of the fugu fish to Sam Lambert's address. And I know it's Sam Lambert's address because Jenna lives right next to him.
Well, that is an interesting coincidence. Well, you're right. It does seem to be a very odd situation. And it seems to me he's being very careless that he would hire her without testing her cooking skills. How did the food that she prepared for you, how did it taste?
Well, she's obviously an experienced and talented chef. And the food I had was very good. But she turned out to be a real hothead. Later in the night, she picked a fight with the owner. We could all hear it. And then just marched out the door.
So, the new chef gets in a fight with the owner later in the evening and suddenly quits. I don't know. Could that have a bearing on this case? Is there anything else that you can add? Anything else that you remember while you were dining at that restaurant?
Let's see. Well, maybe this is something, I don't know. So we're eating out on the patio, and every once in a while I'd hear, Peggy, Peggy, from the owner, and he's calling the new chef. And I thought, okay, her name's Peggy. So then later in the evening, I go to the ladies' room, and there she is, and she's washing her hands. So I noticed one of her blouse cuffs were moved up as she was washing her hands, and the name Carlita was on in a tattoo on her arm.
So, Peggy has a tattoo with the name Carlita on her arm. That's suspicious. Definitely an angle of investigation. I want to thank you for that piece of information. You've been very helpful. And also, I do appreciate you meeting me on such short notice at your place. So if I have any further questions with you, I will contact you.
That sounds good, and it was my pleasure to help you.
Hi, Uncle Frankie. It's Carlita. I have some exciting news for you. I finally tracked down Joey Morgan and made him pay for putting you in prison for the last 10 years.
Good to hear from you, kid. Yeah, that's great news. How did you do it?
Easy. I committed death by sushi.
Death by sushi. That rat bastard got what he deserved for eating raw fish. What, you kidding me? You're not kidding me, are you?
No, I'm not kidding. I'll tell you all the details next time I see you.
Yeah, I didn't see nothing about it in the papers.
Well, that's because he's in the witness protection program and has been going by the name Sam Lambert.
Seemed like our guys would never find him, but you stuck with it. I'm proud of you. Thanks so much. So how did you finally track that punk down?
I discovered that the DA in your trial was disbarred for a long string of ethics violations. I made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Hey, that's my girl. I taught you everything you know. I'm proud of you.
The DA certainly isn't going to talk after the big payoff I gave him. And honestly, the police are too stupid to make a connection to me. They don't have any leads on the case, but Jack Richardson is helping them out.
Yeah, don't underestimate Jack Richardson. He has a reputation around here for solving every case he ever worked on. You know, we grew up together. Yeah, Jackie and I, we took different paths, but he's a tough cookie. Stay away from him.
Don't worry, Uncle Frankie, I will.
Now that I'm out of the pen, I want to see you, kid. How soon you coming to New York?
I'm leaving town soon. Love you. I'll see you at the party Auntie is throwing.
Hi, Jack. I'm Sloan. You may not recognize me.
No, I do. I remember you from the Jenna murder investigation, which turned out not to be a murder investigation. You were the person that was at the gate that took our body temperatures and checked on our health as we entered. So, why did you call me and ask me to come over here?
Well, I have some information that may be of interest to you on the Lambert murder case. Would you like to sit down and be comfortable?
Yes, thank you.
Let's sit down then.
So you have some information about Mr. Lambert. Well, I can certainly use all the help I can get, because it's hard for me to understand how a man who's so seemingly nice like him would be murdered.
When I took his temperature, I didn't recognize him right away.
So you figured it out since then?
Yes. Before I retired, I was a New York cop. I remember Mr. Lambert was connected to the Frankie Castellano case.
The Frankie Castellano case? I remember a former girlfriend of his said that Sam was very interested in Frankie. I wonder if Sam was the person who turned in Frankie and then was put into the witness protection program.
Yes, his identity was kept secret. I met him one night at the station. His real name is Joey Morgan.
I remember reading that story in the newspaper. A rival crime boss tried to shoot Frankie in his own underground gambling parlor. Unfortunately, the shots missed, and a woman who was standing nearby was killed. Shortly thereafter, somebody turned state's evidence, and Frankie was convicted and sentenced to prison.
I hope this was helpful.
You have been extremely helpful. I want to thank you for contacting me.
You're welcome.
Hello, Marla. Got here without a problem. Your directions were great. Found your gate without any difficulty. So, How are you today?
Oh, hi, Jack. I'll be just a minute. Please have a seat. I asked you here because I heard you were working with the police on Sam Lambert's case. And I do have some information for you on his death.
I appreciate you calling me, Marla. Just don't mind telling you that this is proving to be a bit of a difficult case. And I'm hoping that the cause of death will be the breakthrough I'm looking for. I thought I had a suspect, but now I'm beginning to have my doubts about him.
The toxicology test proved that Sam had a high level of neurotoxins in his system.
Well, that's interesting. I just had a conversation about fugu at the Shanghai Palace. You know, if it's improperly prepared, it can become poisonous because of those highly deadly levels of neurotoxins. I think it should be illegal to serve something so potentially deadly.
You know, Jack, let's go inside because it's getting way too warm out here. It is not illegal in the United States. Fugu is very dangerous because it contains a high dose of toxins.
I'm very familiar with the tetrodotoxin. It's a poison that can paralyze the body and stop the breathing. And it's also much more deadly than cyanide.
Apparently, the sushi was delivered. There was a note attached by the restaurant that they were giving out complimentary meals to its frequent customers.
Well, that corroborates what I heard during one of my interviews. I find it rather interesting, coincidental, that a chef that works at the Shanghai Palace doesn't show up for work, and at the same time, another chef shows up looking for work.
If his name was Quan Li, there is a reason he didn't show up to work. His body was found this morning in an alleyway.
Now this is all coming together. Now, I just have to figure out who's Carlita.
This is an unusual name. I just happened to watch a TV show about Frankie Castellano.
Frankie Castellano? Was Carlita related to him?
Yes, she was his niece. According to the TV show, Frank Castellano raised her until his time of imprisonment 10 years ago.
Well, this is good. This is good. Because the woman who showed up at the restaurant applying for a job had a tattoo on her arm that said Carlita.
So on the show, it did say that Carlita Castellano had her first name tattooed on her arm.
Well, thank you, Marla, for the information that you've provided. I think I've solved the case. Sam Lambert used to work for Frankie. Sam's wife was accidentally shot on a mob hit on Frankie. So it was Sam who testified against Frankie, resulting in Frankie getting 10 years in prison. Sam has been in the witness protection program.
Sounds like Carlita finally found him, and she must have been searching all those years.
I agree with you, Marla. The only thing that I do find interesting is why the owner of the Shanghai Palace hired Carlita without requiring a cooking demonstration.
Well, it was probably a matter of self-preservation. Because of the coronavirus, businesses have been hard hit financially.
Well, that does make sense. Money is a great motivator. Again, Marla, I want to thank you for your help in solving this case. I enjoyed working with you, so you have yourself a good day. Good morning, Jenna.
Thanks so much for solving Sam's murder. You are a real hero. I think we can all rest easier now.
Well, I can't take all the credit for it. There's a lot of people that helped. And at the moment, there's an APB out for Carlita, so I'm certain that she will be apprehended soon.
You're probably surprised that it's so cold today after the weather that we had yesterday, but that was unseasonably warm.
Well, it was a sudden transition. Chilly and brisk today, but I'm prepared. Excuse me, I have to take this call. Hello? What? When? Where? Okay. I'll be there shortly. Hold on. Bye.
You looked really shocked. What was that phone call about?
They found Carlita. She's dead.